This is a good
Hang
one.
up, hang up, hang up.
766.
Right. Hello. Um, uh, if you could please let me know if you've got sound. I'm just having a few technical issues with my equipment at the moment, which is quite frustrating. Right. Okay. Yes, we have sound. Awesome. But I wonder if we all are still on here. But yes, welcome back to Michael Reed's, where ancient wisdom meets modern ambition. Whether you're joining us live or catching the replay, I want to thank you for investing this time in yourself, because every chapter we explore contains lessons that have survived generations, cross centuries, and continue to influence the lives of those willing to listen carefully. Before we begin tonight's reading, I have a small favor to ask. If you believe that knowledge has the power to change lives, then take a moment to like the stream, subscribe to Michael Reads, and share this broadcast with someone who is searching for greater understanding, financial freedom, or personal growth. Here on Michael Reads, we're building something far greater than a collection of book reviews. We are creating a community of people who believe that wisdom should not merely be admired but applied. Tonight, we continue our journey through The Richest Man in Babylon with chapter 9, entitled The Clay Tablets of Babylon, a chapter that many readers consider to be one of the most practical and relatable sections in the entire book. Up until this point, we have encountered wealthy merchants, successful lenders, prosperous traders, and men who mastered the art of accumulating wealth. While their stories are inspiring, there is often a part of us that wonders whether their success was somehow unique to their circumstances. This chapter addresses the concern directly by shifting our attention away from the wealthy elite and towards an ordinary individual facing very familiar challenges. Within the story, we discover ancient clay tablets that reveal the personal financial journey of a man who found himself trapped beneath the weight of debt and financial obligations. His situation was not unlike that experienced by many people today. He worked hard, earned an income, and attempted to provide it for those around him. Yet, despite his efforts, he constantly found himself struggling to move forward. What makes this chapter so remarkable is that it provides with a detailed record of his transformation. Rather than presenting a theory or philosophy, it shows us a practical system that was implemented step by step, month after month, allowing him to gradually regain control of his finances and build his future. As you listen tonight, I encourage you to pay close attention to the simplicity of these lessons being taught in a world obsessed with shortcuts, quick riches, and instant success. This chapter reminds us that lasting prosperity is often built through consistency, discipline, and a willingness to follow proven principles even when progress feels slow. You may find that parts of this story resonate with your own experiences. Perhaps you have faced financial pressure, struggled with budgeting, carried debt, or wondered whether true financial freedom was possible. If so, tonight's chapter may offer more than entertainment. It may provide a framework that can be applied to your own journey. So settle in, remove distractions, and prepare to travel once more to the ancient city of Babylon, where timeless lessons continue to illuminate modern lives. I do apologize for all the inconvenience caused um, by all these issues I'm having with my software. So I'm hoping to get this sorted because I have not been able to remain consistent because of my software issues. I am in process of getting it sorted. The clay tablets from Babylon. My dear Professor, the 5 clay tablets from your recent excavation in the ruins of Babylon arrived on the same boat with your letter. I've been fascinated with no need, with no end, and have spent many pleasant hours translating their inscriptions. I should have answered your letter at once, but delayed until I could complete the translations which are attached. The tablets arrived without damage, thanks to your careful use of preservations and excellent packing. You will be astonished, as we were in the laboratory at the story they tell. You expect the dim and distant past to talk of romance and adventure. Arabian Nights sort of things, you know. But instead, it talks about the struggle of a person named Dabasir to pay off his debts. I realize that the conditions on this old world haven't changed as much in 5,000 years as someone might expect. It's odd, you know, but these old inscriptions rather rag me, as the students say. Being a college professor and all, I am supposed to be a thinking human being with a working knowledge of most subjects. But here comes this old chap out of the dust covered ruins of Babylon to offer a way I have never heard of to pay off my debts and at the same time acquire gold to jingle in my wallet. It is a pleasant thought, I say, and interesting to prove whether it will work as well nowadays as it did in old Babylon. Mrs. Shrewsbury and myself are planning to try out his plan on our own finances, which could be much improved. Wishing you the best of luck for your worthy undertaking and waiting eagerly for another opportunity to assist you. This was written by Professor Franklin Caldwell, care of British Scientific Expedition, Hilla, Mesopotamia, and this was in 1934. Tablet number 1. Now, when the moon becomes full, I, Dabasir, only recently returning from slavery in Syria, with the determination to pay my many just debts and become a man of means, worthy of respect in my native city of Babylon, hereby engrave on the clay a permanent record of my story to guide and assist me in carrying out my lofty goals. Under the wise advice of my good old friend Mathon, the gold lender, I am determined to follow an exact plan that he says will lead any honorable man out of debt and into means and self-respect. This plan includes 3 purposes that are my hope and desire. First, the plan provides for my future prosperity. So, 1/10 of all I earn will be set aside as mine to keep. Mathon was wise when he said, the man who keeps in his purse both gold and silver that he doesn't spend is good to his family and loyal to his king. The man who has only a few coppers in his purse is indifferent to his family and indifferent to his king. But the man who has nothing in his purse is unkind to his family and is disloyal to his king because his heart is bitter. Therefore, the man who wants to succeed must have coins that he can keep to jingle in his purse, so that he has love in his heart for his family and loyalty to his king. Second, the plan says that I should support and clothe my good wife who has returned to me with loyalty from her father's house. Mathan says that to take good care of a faithful wife puts self respect into the heart of a man and adds strength and determination to his mission. Therefore, 7/10 of all I earn will be used to provide a home, clothes to wear, and food to eat, with a bit extra to spend, so that our lives will not be lacking in pleasure and enjoyment. But he said to be careful that we don't spend greater than 7/10 of what I earn for those worthy purposes. Here lies the success of the plan. I must live on this portion and never use more or buy what I can't pay for out of this portion. Third, the plan says, out of my earnings, my debts will be paid. Therefore, each time the moon is full, 2/10 of all I have earned will be divided honorably and fairly among those who have trusted me and to whom I am indebted. So, in due time, all my debts will be paid. Therefore, I will engrave the name of every man that I am indebted to and the honest amount of my debt. Faru, the cloth weaver, 2 silver, 6 copper. Sinjar, the couch maker, 1 silver. Ahmar, my friend, 3 silver, 1 copper. Zanka, my friend, 4 silver, 7 copper. Askamir, my friend, 1 silver, 3 copper. Harin Sir, the jewel maker, 6 silver, 2 copper. Diabarka, my friend, my father's friend, 4 silver, 1 copper. Alkahand, the house owner, 14 silver. Mathan, the gold lender, 9 silver. Birejik, the farmer, 1 silver, 7 copper. From here on, disintegrated cannot be deciphered. Tablet 3. To these creditors I owe in total 119 pieces of silver and 141 pieces of copper. Because I owed these sums and saw no way to repay them, in my stupidity I allowed my wife to return to her father, and I left my native city to look for easy wealth elsewhere, only to find disaster and be sold into the degradation of slavery. Now that Mathan has shown me how I can repay my debts in small amounts of my earnings, I realize the great extent of my stupidity in running away from the results of my extravagant purchases. So I have visited my creditors and explained to them that the only resource I have to pay them is my ability to earn, and I plan to apply 2/10 of all I earn on my debts evenly and honestly. This is how much I can do, but nothing more. If they are patient, in time my debts will be paid in full. Ahmar, who I thought was my best friend, yelled at me bitterly and I left him humiliated. Birejik, the farmer, pleaded that I pay him first because he badly needed help. Alkahad, the house owner, was disagreeable and insisted he would give me trouble unless I settled in full with him soon. All of the rest accepted my proposal. Therefore, I am more determined than ever to carry through my plan. I am convinced that it is easier to pay my just debts than to avoid them. Even though I can't meet the needs and demands of a few of my creditors, I will deal with all of them impartially. Tablet 4. It is a full moon again. I have worked hard with a free mind. My good wife has supported my plans to pay my creditors. Because of our determination, I have earned 19 pieces of silver during the past month, buying camels with good lungs and good legs for Nibatur. I have divided this according to the plan. 1/10 I have set aside to keep as my own. 7/10 I have divided with my good wife to pay for our living. 2/10 I have divided among the creditors as evenly as I could to do with coppers. I did not see Ahmad but left the payment with his wife. Birejik was so pleased he kissed my hand. Only old Alcahad was grouchy and said I must pay faster. I replied that if I was allowed to be well fed and not worried, that would enable me to pay faster. All of the others thanked me and spoke well of my efforts. So, at the end of 1 month, my indebtedness is reduced by almost 4 pieces of silver, and I have almost 2 pieces of silver besides that no man has a claim on. My heart is lighter than it has been for a long time. Again, a full moon. I've worked hard, but with poor success. I've only been able to buy a few camels. I've only earned 11 pieces of silver. Nevertheless, my good wife and I have stuck to the plan, and even though we have bought no new clothes and eaten little else besides herbs, again I paid ourselves 1/10 of the 11 pieces while we lived on 7/10. I was surprised when Ahmad commended my payment even though it was small. So did Birejik. Alcahad flew into a rage, but when I told him to give back his portion if he didn't want it, he calmed down. The others were as content as before. The moon shines full again, and I am greatly delighted. I found a fine herd of camels and bought many good ones, so my earnings were 42 pieces of silver. This month, my wife and I bought much needed sandals and clothes. Also, we dined well and meat and fowl. We were able to pay more than 8 pieces of silver to our creditors. Even Alcahad did not protest. This plan is great because it is leading us out of debt and giving us wealth that is ours to keep. It has been 3 months since I last carved on this clay. Each time I paid myself 1/10 of all that I earned. Each time my good wife and I have lived on 7/10, even though at times it was difficult. Each time I have paid 2/10 to my creditors. In my purse, I now have 21 pieces of silver that are mine. It makes my head stand up straight on my shoulders and makes me proud to walk among my friends. My wife keeps our home well and is well dressed. We are happy to live together. The plan has untold value. Hasn't it made an honorable man of an ex-slave? Tablet 5. Again, the moon shines full, and I remember that it has been a long time since I carved on the clay. It has been 12 months, in fact, but today I will not neglect my record, because on this day I have paid the last of my debts. This is the day my good wife and my thankful self celebrate with great feast because our determination has paid off. Many things happened on my final visit to my creditors that I will remember for a long time. Ahmad begged for my forgiveness for his unkind words and said that out of all his friends, he valued my friendship the most. Old Alcahad is not so bad after all, because he said, "You were once a piece of soft clay to be pressed and molded by any hand and that touched you, but now you're a piece of bronze capable of holding an edge. If you ever need silver or gold again, come to me." He is not the only one who holds me in high regard. Many others speak differently of me. My good wife looks at me with a light in her eyes and makes a man have confidence. That makes a man have confidence in himself. But it is the plan that has made my success. It has enabled me to pay all my debts and to jingle both gold and silver in my purse. I recommend it to everyone who wants to get ahead. If it will enable an ex-slave to pay his debts and have gold in his purse, can it help any man to find independence? I myself am not finished with it, because I am convinced that if I keep following the plan, it will make me rich among men. So this is a letter to Professor Franklin Caldwell from the care of British Scientific Expedition. My dear Professor, if you're digging in those ruins of Babylon, you encounter a ghost of a former resident, an old camel trader named Debasir, do me a favor. Tell him his scribbling on those clay tablets so long ago has earned him the lifelong gratitude of a couple of college folks back here in England. You might remember my letter from a year ago that Mrs. Shrewsbury and myself intended to try his plan for getting out of debt and at the same time having gold to jingle. You may have guessed, even though we tried to keep it from our friends, our desperate situation. We were frightfully humiliated for years by a lot of old debts and worried sick out of fear that some of the tradespeople might start a scandal that would force me out of the college. We paid and paid every shilling we could squeeze out of our income, but it was hardly enough to hold things even. Besides that, we were forced to buy all our things where we could get further credit regardless of higher costs. It developed into a vicious cycle that would grow worse instead of better. Our struggles were getting hopeless. We couldn't move to a less costly apartment because we owed the landlord. There did not appear to be anything we could do to improve our situation. Then here comes your acquaintance, the old camel trader from Babylon, with a plan to do just what we wanted to accomplish. He jolly well stirred us up to follow his system. We made a list of all our debts, and I took it around and showed it to everyone we owed money to. I explained how it was simply impossible for me to ever pay them the way things were going. They could easily see this for themselves from the figures. Then I explained that the only way I say how to pay in full was to set aside 20% of my income each month to be divided pro rata, which would pay them in full in little over 2 years. That, in the meantime, we would go on a cash basis and give them the further benefit of our cash purchases. They were quite decent. Our greengrocer, a wise old chap, put it in a way that helped the others to understand. If you pay for all you buy and then pay some on what you owe, that is better than you have done, because you ain't paid down the account at all in 3 years. Finally, I had them all sign their names to an agreement binding them not to bother us as long as the 20% of our income was paid regularly. Then we began scheming on how to live on 70%. We were determined to keep that extra 10% to jingle. The thought of silver and possibly gold was quite alluring. It was like having an adventure to make the change. We enjoyed figuring this way and that to live comfortably on that remaining 70%. We started with rent and managed to secure a fair reduction. Next, we put our favorite brands of tea and such under suspicion and were surprised how often we could purchase superior qualities at less cost. It was too long of a story for a letter, but anyhow, it did not prove difficult. We managed and cheerfully at that. What a relief it proved to be to have our affairs in such a shape we were no longer persecuted by past due accounts. I must not neglect, however, to tell you about that extra 10% we were supposed to jingle. Well, we did jingle it for some time. Now, don't laugh too soon. You see, that is the funny part. It is the real fun to start accumulating money that you don't want to spend. There is more pleasure in saving up such a surplus than there could be in spending it. After we had jingled to our heart's content, we found a more profitable use for it. We started an investment that we could pay that 10% into each month. This is proving to be the most satisfying part of our new plan. It is the first thing we pay out of my check. There is a gratifying sense of security to know our investment is growing steadily. By the time my teaching days are over, it should be a snug sum, large enough so the income will take care of us for the rest of our lives. All of this we did out of the same old check. Difficult to believe, but absolutely true. All of our debts are being gradually paid, and at the same time, our investment is increasing. Besides, we get along financially even better than before. We will believe there could be such a difference in results between following a financial plan and just drifting along. At the end of the next year, when all of our old bills will have been paid off, we will have more to put into our investment besides some extra for travel. We're determined to never again allow our living expenses to exceed 70% of our income. Now you can understand why we would like to extend our personal thanks to that old chap whose plan saved us from our hell on earth. He knew he had been through it all. He wanted others to benefit from his own bitter experiences. That is why he spent tedious hours carving his message on the clay. He had a real message for fellow sufferers, a message so important that after 5,000 years it has risen out of the ruins of Babylon, just as true and just as vital as the day it was buried. Now that we've completed chapter 9, it is worth taking a few moments to reflect on what we have said, because beneath the story of these clay tablets lies a blueprint for personal responsibility, financial recovery, and long term prosperity. One of the most powerful lessons presented in this chapter is the understanding that financial problems rarely resolve themselves. The individual whose experiences were recorded on the tablets did not wait for luck to arrive, nor did he spend his time hoping that someone else would rescue him from his circumstances. Instead, he made a conscious decision to confront reality exactly as it was and take ownership of the situation before him. His willingness to accept responsibility became the turning point in his life. It was not the discovery of hidden treasure, an unexpected inheritance, or a fortunate business opportunity that changed his future. It was the simple decision to stop avoiding the problem and begin addressing it systematically. Another important lesson concerns the role of budgeting. Many people hear the word budget and immediately think of restrictions, limitations, and sacrifice. However, the wisdom contained within these tablets presents budgeting in a completely different light. Rather than being a prison, a budget becomes a roadmap that directs money towards meaningful purposes and prevents it from disappearing without explanation. The debtor carefully divided his earnings so that every coin had a purpose. Some supported his household, some were allocated to paying creditors, and some reserved for his future. Through this structure, he transformed confusion into clarity and uncertainty into progress. Perhaps one of the most surprising lessons in this chapter is the emphasis placed on paying yourself first. Even while carrying debt, the debtor continued setting aside a portion of his earnings as savings. At first glance, this might appear unreasonable, yet Babylonian wisdom teaches us that the habit of saving must begin before wealth arrives, not afterwards. But consistently keeping a small portion of what he earned, he was doing more than accumulating money. He was building confidence, developing discipline, and proving to himself that he could take control of his financial future. This chapter also highlights the extraordinary power of consistency. Modern society often celebrates dramatic transformations and overnight success stories, yet the tablets reveal a different truth. Meaningful progress usually occurs through small actions repeated faithfully over long periods of time. The debtor's circumstances improved not because of one great decision, but because of many ordinary decisions made repeatedly. Month after month, he followed the plan. Month after month, he honored his commitments. Month after month, he moved a little closer towards freedom. There's another lesson hidden beneath the financial teachings, and that lesson concerns character. Rather than avoiding those whom he owed money, the debtor approached them honestly and respectfully. He acknowledged his obligations and proposed a fair arrangement that demonstrated both sincerity and commitment. As a result, he earned something that cannot be purchased with gold. He earned trust. His reputation improved because his actions reflected integrity. Even today, trust remains one of the most valuable assets any individual can possess. When we step back and examine this chapter as a whole, its message becomes remarkably clear. Financial freedom is not built through luck, intelligence alone, or extraordinary opportunities. More often than not, it is built through discipline, patience, planning, and the willingness to do simple things consistently. The wisdom contained within these ancient tablets continues to resonate because human nature has remained largely unchanged. We still struggle with spending, debt, impatience, and the desire for quick solutions. Yet the principles that helped a Babylonian citizen regain control of his life thousands of years ago remain just as effective today. As we conclude tonight's discussion, I would like to leave you with a question. If your financial habits were recorded on a clay tablet for future generations to study, what story would these tablets tell? Would they reveal discipline, responsibility, a steady progress, or would they highlight areas that still require attention and improvement? Whatever your answer may be, remember that tomorrow's tablet has not yet been written. The decisions you make today will determine the story that future chapters tell. So thank you for spending time with me. I do apologize for my technical issues. I'm hoping that on the next chapter they will be all sorted. If tonight's lesson has given you a new perspective, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who may benefit from hearing it. Subscribe if you have not already done so, and become a part of our growing community of lifelong learners, because this wisdom is unlearned, and it is also to provoke transformation. So until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep building the life you deserve. This is Michael Reeds, and I'll see you in the next chapter.